What's up guys, welcome back to another LumaFusion tutorial. In this tutorial we're going to create the seamless zoom in transition as well as the zoom out transition. And we're only going to use 3 clips to create the zoom in and the zoom out transition seamless in between those 3 clips. There is a lot of you that uses the zoom in and zoom out transition for your videos, but to create the seamless zoom in and the seamless zoom out transition, there is quite a few things that you need to consider when you are editing your video. And that is to shoot either in 4K to not lose some video quality when you are zooming in, or to actually shoot in 1080p but to have extremely good lighting to compensate with the low resolution. Because in this tutorial we're gonna make the zoom in transition and we're gonna make it so it zooms in and we're gonna stay zoomed in all the time until we want to zoom back out again. And that's the main reason for shooting your video in high quality 4K or 1080p with extremely good lighting when it comes to creating the perfect seamless zoom in and zoom out transition. So without further ado, let's jump over to the iPad and create this awesome zoom in and zoom out transition. So a lot of you are actually using the zoom transition when you are making your videos in LumaFusion. There's one specific thing that I want to address when it comes to making the perfect zoom in transition and zoom out transition in LumaFusion. And we're going to do that in this tutorial today. We're going to make a seamless zoom in transition, and I'm going to explain exactly how you use this type of zoom in transition to make it really seamless. What we're going to do today, first, as you can see here on the screen right now, this is the clean intro that a lot of you have been trying to make as well, but most of you kind of felt like this was a rushed tutorial. So I'm gonna spend more time actually showing how you can make this type of intro right here. So in a couple of days I will be releasing this tutorial as well, and this is for that tutorial. This is the super clean intro that you can make yourself. I have a tutorial already, but now let's just create a new project. We can choose 30 frames, it doesn't really matter, and we can change the project name to zoom in and tap on the square with the plus inside. Here you will see a new project, and what we can do now is to go to the top left on the T, tap on that and go to photos. So let's go and find some video files here. We can use maybe we can use let's see if there's some of these video files here that we can use. This right here is going to be our first one, so we're going to zoom from this into the next one. Just going to make a cut to it and delete the part I don't want in this zoom transition. And here you can see that we have the car, and we want to zoom in to maybe something that's inside the car. And I think we have a shot where my wife is sitting inside the car, which we can use, which will probably look quite awesome. Might be this one, yeah. So here we have the second one. So here we have the 2 clips that we want to use. So we could cut this one here as well. So the important thing to understand when you are making this zoom in transition is that the second file you are zooming into should always be in 4K to not lose quality of the video. Because on this clip right here, which is the second clip, on this clip we will be zooming into that clip and we will stay zoomed in. So this transition is not really that difficult to make. So we can start by adding maybe let's see, a 10 frame cut should be somewhere around here. It's 8. We can keep it at 8. It doesn't really matter. Like 5 frames should be minimum, depending on how fast you want the zoom in transition to be. And we can make a cut at the, let's say we want it to stop here. We'll make a cut to that video file right there. And now we don't have to make a different cut to this video file because it's going to stay zoomed in all the time. So what we're going to do is to go over to the first one, which is the car. Double tap on this and you get into frame and fit. We're not going to do anything in color and effects right away. We're going to go in there to add some blur later on, but this is mainly to create that zoom in transition. You could use it with if you go over to the pick whip tool, you could use the butterfly effect to create like a zoom in effect. So, well, we can actually use this this effect. So we're gonna take the radius to 0 and the scale to 0, and the blend should be at 0. So after we change all these settings, if we now adjust the scale, we will only zoom in. We won't have this butterfly effect, which you see here. We will only be zooming into the video. So what we can do now is to maybe go to the middle of those 8 frames. So that leaves us at 4 frames, maybe 5. So we're gonna go for 5 frames and make a keyframe. Then we're gonna skip to the end and make another keyframe. And then on the last keyframe, we're gonna scale to maybe, well, we can try with 70. So we're gonna scale to 70, and now we're basically done with this. What we can do now is to go out to our timeline, and we can take a look, and you now see that it's zooming in. So if we do a playback of this zoom in now, you will probably see that it zooms quite fast. That's maybe a little bit too fast. So if we go into the clip again, and maybe we want to take advantage of all the 8 frames. So the only thing you have to do now is to go to the left of the first keyframe and make a new keyframe at the beginning. Now you can easily delete this second keyframe, which is close to the middle, because this is set to 0, 0, 0 on the blend scale in radius. And the same goes for the first keyframe that we just created. So we can delete the one in the middle, and now we have a longer zoom. So if we do a playback again, you can see it zooms a little bit slower than the first one. And once you're satisfied with the speed of the zoom, we can go over to the second clip. And as I mentioned, we don't have to use any cuts to this clip. We can basically just double tap to get into edit. And we can go over to the pick whip tool on the top right corner right here. And we can find the same effect, which is the butterfly effect. And we can apply that. Now we can take the radius to 0 and the scale to 0. And we want to zoom in a little bit on this to create that zoom in transition. So what we're going to start with is to go to the beginning of the clip and make our first keyframe. So once we created the first keyframe, we could also go 8 frames into this clip. So we can simply go frame by tapping on this button next to the skip button. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we can make another keyframe. On this one, we're going to choose the scale to maybe 20 should be enough. And now you're basically done with the zoom in transition. So if we now just scroll through further into the video, you will see that the video stays zoomed in at a scale of 0.20. So if you don't use the right lighting when you are shooting, like in this shot right here, you can see that there is a lot of grain in the video. And you don't really want that when you are showcasing your videos on YouTube or to your friends and family. But here you can also correct that with adding some cinematic grain. I have a specific video for adding cinematic grain, so if you want to check that out, you can find it in the description below. But for this tutorial, this is good enough, so we're gonna head back to our timeline. So if you go to the beginning of the timeline now, and to the beginning of the clip, and if we now tap on play, you will see the zoom in effect. Maybe we can go a little bit harder on the second one, but if we go very slow, you can see that it zooms in to the first one, and then it continues to zoom in on the other one. Maybe it's a little bit too slow, so we could go a little bit faster. We could maybe go to around 5 frames, so we're gonna skip 3 frames backwards. 1, 2, 3. Make another keyframe and delete the last keyframe. Now we can go to the second keyframe and we can adjust the scale to, let's say 30 this time. And if we go back to our timeline and do another playback, so if we now go a little bit slow, you can see that the first one is zooming in, the second one is zooming in faster, and this creates that really seamless, smooth zoom in transition. But keep in mind that the last clip of this transition is, it's really important that you have a high quality video. So I recommend 4K, but if you have very proper lighting to this to the footage, which is the second footage, you could shoot it in 1080p as well. But the lighting is everything when it comes to good quality for those 1080p videos, also for 4K of course. But if you're gonna maintain the zoom in on your 1080p video, it's really important to have proper lighting. But what's really cool about this transition and the way we do it right here is that it works perfectly when you are creating a travel video, a B-roll, a cinematic sequence which goes quite fast, and also if you're gonna make like an effect video. Because as we zoom into this second part of the clip, as you can see, after we reach the second keyframe, it stays at a scale of 0.30. So what we can do now is to make this into a seamless zoom out transition, since we already have it scaled into 0.30. So what we can do is to find a point, let's say here, we're gonna make a keyframe, and we're gonna go, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 frames, and make another keyframe. We can now go out to our timeline and we can make a cut at that frame, and we can delete the last part. So when we go into the video file again, you can see that we have the last keyframe at the end of the clip. Sometimes it's kind of bugged like this, but you can just simply create a new one. So on this one, since we have it scaled into 0.30, we can now scale it back out to 0. And once we do that, we can import a new clip. Let's try this one right here. This looks perfect. So we can drag that over to our timeline, and you can now see that we go from this zoom in, seamless zoom in transition, and then as we get to the end of the second clip, we zoom out again. So what we can do here is to go over to the second clip, which is, let's cut it a little bit more, which is this one. We can double tap on that, go to the pick whip tool, add the butterfly effect, take the scale to 0 and radius to 0. Then we're going to create a new keyframe at the beginning, and we can go, let's say 6 frames. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then make another keyframe. So if we go back to the first keyframe, we can scale that into, let's say 0.30. If we now go back to the second one, that's all set to 0. So if we go out to our timeline and we scroll through on this last video file that we imported, you can see it goes from zoomed in to zoomed out. So if we now just scroll through to see how the effects work, we can see that it goes from zoomed in, zooming out, and then zooming out again. So if we do a playback on the entire sequence, you can see that it's going to zoom in and then zoom out. You can also make this zoom in more and zoom out more, but that means you have to go to this second clip, which you are zooming into, and zoom in furthermore. So if we go to the second keyframe, it's set to 30. If we take it to 50, that means we have to go to the third keyframe and also change that to 50. On the last keyframe, it's going to be on 0. So if we move back to our timeline again, we can go over to the next video, which is the last video file we imported. Double tap on that one, go to the butterfly effect, and go to the first keyframe and change the scale to 50. Just like that. And if we now go back to our timeline and scrub through, you will see that the effect is popping a lot more when it comes to the zoom out effect. So here we go, zooming out and then zooming out again. So if we do another playback now, you can see the zoom is a lot smoother and there's more zoom added to this zoom out effect. So if you're going to make a b-roll sequence where you have this effect applied, the zoom in and zoom out transition, it doesn't really matter if the video quality is a little bit bad, because you can fix it with adding cinematic grain, or your video might go that fast so people don't really notice how bad or the quality of the video when they see the effect. To make this look even smoother, we can go into the clips and we can add some blur. So we're going to go to the first clip, which is of the car, double tap, go to color and effects on the bottom screen here, and then go over to the water drop and you can add the short zoom effect. Now you want to go to the beginning, make a keyframe, and change the amount to 0. Go to the end and make a keyframe and change the amount to the desired amount you want to have in your video. So for this, I'm going to go for around 10ish. And once you've done that, we go back to our timeline and we can go to the next clip. Double tap to get into edit. But since this is an entire video, we want to go over to the butterfly effect first. And then we want to tap on the second keyframe before we add the short zoom effect. This will allow us to, once we tap on the short zoom, it will stay in the same position. So the only thing we have to do is to make a keyframe and then go to the beginning and make another keyframe. So here on the first one, we're going to change the amount to 10ish. And on the second one, we're going to change the amount to 0. Now we're going to go back to the butterfly effect and go to the third keyframe and then back to the short zoom, and you see the marker stays at that position. The only thing we have to do now is to make a keyframe and then go to the end and make another keyframe. So the third one is going to stay on 0 and the last one is going to stay on 10. Just like that. We can now go out to our timeline and we can go over to the next video file. Double tap to get into edit and then color and effects. And once again over to the butterfly effect. Go to the second keyframe, then go to the water droplet and find the short zoom effect. Apply the short zoom effect and make a keyframe. Then go to the beginning and make another keyframe. And on the first keyframe here, we're going to keep the amount on 10ish. On the second keyframe, we're going to change the amount back to 0. So if we now take a look at the video, you will see that the video is a lot smoother after we applied the blur effect. We can render this video. Once the video is rendered, we can go over to our Photos app and we can take a look at the video. The zoom out might be a little bit too fast here, but you can always adjust that with keyframes. So what you can do to adjust this is to go over to the last clip, double tap to get into edit. We can go to the butterfly effect and we can select the last keyframe, and then let's go 5 more frames. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we can make a keyframe and delete the second keyframe. Now our zoom out and transition will last a little bit longer. So if we now do a playback to the video, we will see that the last zoom out and transition lasts a little bit longer. And this is a simple way that you can use to adjust the keyframes and the length of the zoom in and zoom out transitions, and simply adjust the keyframes and then make the gap between each keyframe longer or shorter. That all depends on how fast or how slow you want the zoom in or zoom out transition to be. So if we now pinch to zoom in once again, you can see what the zoom out transition that we just made looks like. We can take it slow so you can see exactly how smooth it is. Personally, I love the zoom in transition a lot more than the zoom out. Leave a comment in the comment section below and let me know which zoom effect that you like the most. Is it the zoom in transition or is it the zoom out transition? But that's basically how easy it is to make this zoom in and zoom out transition. And what you can do now is to go to the first part here, which is the zoom in, and you can save this as a preset. You can simply go into color and effects, tap on the star with the plus inside, change the name that you want the transition to be named, and then tap on the star again. But for the next clip, you can make this as a preset as well. But the thing you have to do is to go into color and effects on this video, and you have to tap on the butterfly and then find the second keyframe and then skip 1 frame to the right. Go out to your timeline again, tap on the scissors, and now you can save this as a preset in the same way. You double tap on the clip, go to color and effects, tap on the star with the plus inside, and change the name to the name of the zoom in transition. You can name this transition the zoom in transition in, and like having in at the end because it's going into the clip. So let's say zoom in, and maybe you can do it like this for you to easily find the transition later and to easily understand where to apply this transition. For the zoom out transition, you can do the exact same thing. You can go into the video file which contains the zoom out and double tap to get into edit. Go over to the butterfly effect, go to the last keyframe here and skip 1 frame backwards out to your timeline, and then make a cut with your scissors. You can now double tap and do the same thing. Go to color and effects, start with the plus inside and change the name of your preset, and then tap on the star once more and the preset will be saved. And that goes with the last clip as well. So this is basically how easy it is to create the perfect zoom in and the perfect zoom out in LumaFusion. I wish they had some ease in and ease out, but hopefully that is coming in the future. So with that said, that's how we make the most seamless, smoothest zoom in and zoom out transition possible in LumaFusion. There is, I wish there had some like ease in and ease out which we could apply to the keyframes. If you are familiar with the Final Cut Pro or with Premiere Pro, you know what I mean when I say ease in and ease out. That would make it so much better. And there's also a couple of other things I want to get out there regarding what we want to see in LumaFusion for the next update. But we're gonna take a lot of that in the live stream tomorrow. So with that said, that's the end of this video. And until next time, keep on creating some awesome stuff. And I'll hopefully see you in the live stream tomorrow at 8 o'clock GMT +1.